BatchView is flexible in that it lets you do some ad hoc searching that can be very convenient. Now, if I have my search for my digester and I'm looking at the past 4 hours, and I just want to go back maybe over the past 6 hours, I can change this time range to 6 hours. And I can look at that data or change to 12 or 10 or 2 or 3. And as long as I do this in run mode, you'll notice I'm in run mode. All these changes are ad hoc changes. I can simply revert back to my original configuration without having to worry about, oh, did I save this or did I make a change? Did I mess up my display? I can put it right back to where it was. You can also right-click on the batch trend, and you can get different tag aliases. So if I wanted to change from viewing temperature, maybe I want to change temperature to pressure, and I want to add that to my batch trend. I can do that here. Again, that's an ad hoc change. So if I revert that back to the original configuration, that shows me temperature. So I can do a lot of different changes to my functionality here, to my batch group, without actually having to save them permanently. And these are called ad hoc changes. One of the neat features of using BatchView and ProcessBook is you can take advantage of the module relative display concept and bring it into the world of batch. Let's go and look at my ProcessBook display that I built. You can see I've got my batch group from an earlier example. I'm showing all the data from digester 1 for the last 4 hours. And let's go into the batch group and let's edit that. And we want to change this unit name to be something that is going to be able to point to a given module. Now, before I do that, I want to add my module relative list to my display. So I'm going to go to Tools and Add Module. And I'm going to drill down until I find the modules that I want to use. Now I want to compare my digesters. And if you remember from an earlier example, we built this module path. And I need to add digester 1 by clicking on the module and clicking the little Add a Module arrow, and add digester 2. That will add digesters 1 and 2 to my selected modules column, and thus to my display. Now what I need to do is I need to tie this module path to this unit name. So digester 1 is not hard coded in here. So what I'm going to do is go back to my configuration, and I'm going to go to my, over here next to unit 1 or digester 1, I'm going to click there, and you'll see that digester 1 is hard coded in there as the unit mask. I'm going to delete that and click on the little module symbol and change that to simply be the module context. So what that's going to do is it's going to pick up the module context from my available modules panel. So if I go back to run mode and I click on, well, let me expand this out so you can tell which digester we're using. Remember, everything that has a 2 in the first of the 4 digits was module digester 2, and everything that has a 1 in it is digester 1. So you can see how I've created a module relative display using both my module relative functionality or available modules and my batch group. If your Gantt chart and your trends ever get decoupled or unsynchronized, you can synchronize them again by using what we call this grab feature. You'll see as I illustrate this, I'm going to take my batch trend. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to I moved the whole thing. I want to grab just the trend, and I want to move that apart. And you can see that now they're separated. And if I were to ever change the time range on this trend, they might not be synchronized anymore. So if I want to synchronize this trend back with my Gantt chart, I simply grab the trend in build mode, and as you move it close and you align the left edges, you will see these 3 triangles appear. And when the 3 triangles appear, if you drop the trend right at that point, they will now become aligned once again. So, as it says, you drag either the Gantt chart or the batch trend toward the other. As the left edges align, they will snap together with 3 arrows. You release the mouse, and now you're synchronized again. Normally when people want to compare things like durations or time into process, they use the Gantt chart. And we're going to look at some of the features, the double click, the align, the zooms. First of all, we have a right click menu that we can use. If we right click on any of the Gantt strips, we can see we can either expand this item to the next level or to all level, or we can expand every pi unit batch. We also have the option of collapsing. So if I expand this item to all levels, you can see that I get all the levels showing for that particular Gantt chart or that particular batch. Now, if I wanted to zoom in or compare all these pre-hydrolysis cooking phases, I can right-click on it and say Align to every cooking phase. And what that's going to do is it aligned all of my batches, all of my unit batches to that phase. Now, if I wanted to expand to every cooking phase, you can see that I've expanded all of my Gantt charts and they're all lined up to that phase. And in fact, if I only wanted to see that particular phase, I could zoom in on it. This is sort of tough to do because of the lines, but if you drag a box around that phase, it will eliminate everything from your diagram except for those particular items. And you'll notice that every time I make a change in the Gantt chart, the trend changes appropriately as well. So I can either show the parent level for those particular ones, or I can simply revert back to my original configuration. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the right click and with the zoom, with the drag in the Gantt chart. Also, notice that when you have zoom with align, that was a setting in the trend configuration. Zoom with align is normally disabled, and that way when you zoom, it doesn't necessarily align each one of them. It shows them in their relative spaces. If you have zoom with align enabled, it will align each item every time you zoom. So that behavior is set in the trend configuration, and you can alter that as you see fit. Another common task with BatchView is to do a process value analysis, and this is usually focused on the batch trends. And the batch trends work very much like ProcessBook trends in that you can zoom in on a particular section, you can revert back out, and you can use the trend cursors and all of the features that you have come to expect from the ProcessBook trend. So if I wanted to compare or watch the current batch running, that's the batch in green, I could see that run, and then if I wanted to compare that or zoom in on any one of those points, I could simply zoom in and see where that batch happened to be lying at that point, and I could revert back out and continue to watch it rise. Keep in mind that when you zoom in on something like that, you no longer get the live update. It's just a snapshot of when you zoomed in. So when you come back, you may see that the trend looks a little bit different if you've stayed zoomed in for any period of time. Exercise 9 asks us to use many of the features that we've been looking at. So let's go into ProcessBook. And it's first asking us on Digester 1, find in the last 24 hours all the batches where the temperature exceeded 185 degrees for more than 5% of the pi unit batches during the last during less than 75 minutes. So I'm going to draw a batch group on the screen. And first of all, we want for Digester 1, so I'm going to change the unit name to Digester 1, and I want to look on the Layout tab and make sure that I add my search and results parameters. Now, I want to be able to have my users search for specific criteria, and in this case, we're looking at some of the filter criteria. So I want to configure the search panel. And I'm only going to be searching for unit batches, so I don't need the select feature. I don't need batch ID or product. All I need is unit name because they may want to look at Digester 2 as well. But I do want to add duration and filter because those are fields that I want my users to be able to select on. So once I've configured that, I can click OK. And you can see I have my search criteria here. I've got my search and my results and my Gantt. And I probably could have added the trend temperature trace to if I wanted to the trend. But they wanted us to find on digester 1 for the last 24 hours everything where the temperature exceeded 185 degrees. So I'm going to put the alias in there of temperature, and I'm going to put greater than 185. And they've asked us that they want to find out where that temperature exceeded that for more than 5% of the time. So I'm going to select greater than. You'll notice 5% is not one of the pre-canned options, so I'm going to type in 5%. And they wanted to find this where the duration was shorter than 75 minutes. So 75 minutes would be 75 M. I can click search, and the results are shown on the right. I've completed the first query. Now the second query they're asking us on digesters 1 or 2, find PI batch unit batches that were completed in the last 12 hours. So I want to say that ended within the last 12 hours, between now, 12 hours ago and now, and whose duration was between 50 and 60 minutes. I'm going to use 40 minutes and 60 minutes because I don't think I have any below 50. I don't need the filter expression anymore. So I can click search, and you can see that I do have some results. I'm going to go, and it also asked us that they only want to see the sulfate cooking phase information, and they want us to align to all those start times. So I'm going to drag a box around sulfate cooking, and then finally to align each one of them, I want to select align to every operation. And there you can see clearly we had one sulfate cooking phase that was longer than the others, and a couple that were shorter than the others. Now, if I wanted to do the extra credit, I could save this as hourly. And they simply want us to find the last 12 hours of electrical and gas consumption on an hourly basis and describe the peculiarities of each process. So what I want to do is go in and find my my gas consumption event that we did. If you remember, we had our hourly. I'm going to remove the digester. And I'm going to go any length and active within the last 12 hours and click search. And we can see all of the hourly rates here, all of the hourly variables here. And if I double click on the batch group, I can add either the electrical or I can add either the electrical or the gas consumption to that query. And I can see any peculiarities that I want to look at over the last hour for those.